Welcome to today's episode of Inside Auto ID. My name is Ged Cairns, and today I'm joined by Phil Jarrett of Dakota Integrated Solutions, who are specialists in voice-guided workflow. Welcome, Phil. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Jed, and thank you for inviting me along.
We're going to go straight into it, Phil. What is voice-guided workflow?
In its rawest terms, voice-guided workflow enables individuals within perhaps supply chain, distribution centres, warehouses, and the like, to be guided around that particular operation with the use of voice commands. Those voice commands are driven from a central server that has actually got the DC or the warehouse mapped, and it will tell the individuals where to go, what to do, and how to do it during the course of that process. That is the rawest sense of a voice-directed workflow.
And essentially, from a technology perspective, how does voice solutions replace traditional mobile PDA technology?
So that's an interesting question, to be honest, Jed. And we can actually drive both solutions running in parallel. But in the terms of a pure voice implementation, what you'd actually get is a device that has no screen. It's belt worn. And the individuals will wear a headset, and basically that solution enables the check and balance from the server sending a command to the individual, and the individual checking back every step throughout that whole process. The replacement of a screen enables the efficiency gain, and that's where the interaction comes into play, whereby you may have a traditional scanning type application, whereby in a warehouse, you'd see a warehouse individual scan a location, input data onto a screen, pick a product, input more data onto the screen, and then move on to the next task. With voice, we omit the use of a screen, and all of that is done by the use of voice.
From an implementation perspective, what are the key differences between a traditional PDA installation and a voice installation?
So with a voice installation, there's a lot of nuances that come with that particular type of technology and that particular implementation. So for example, our consultants and our specialists within that particular field would actually remap a warehouse. They would really drill down on the actual workflows and the processes to best accommodate the use of voice. So we're not just going to replace one technology with the other. We're actually going to reconfigure the whole workflow and the whole process. So it goes a lot deeper, because ultimately what we're trying to do is drive those efficiencies. We want to increase the productivity by 25% minimum. We want accuracy levels to 99.99%. And by doing what we do underneath the bonnet enables those wins and benefits to actually come to the fruition.
From a supply chain perspective and actually working within a warehouse, what are the surprising quick wins that can be achieved with voice picking?
The quick wins, ultimately, the system pays for itself within roughly around 12 months. And the reasons and how that is manifested is basically, when you think that we've got an increase in productivity by 25% as a minimum gain, well, that enables, for example, if you've got a team of 100 individuals currently, and then replace that technology that they're currently using with voice, what we're actually getting now is an output of 125 individuals. So therefore, the company can get that output a far greater. And obviously that then drives business efficiencies, but also business gains with the output that it can produce with its current workforce. And that's how this particular system will actually pay for itself.
From what you're saying there, Phil, it's not just supply chain and warehousing that can benefit from this technology. What else can benefit from voice as a technology?
That's a really good question, Jed. And we as a business have really sort of taken the mantle now, and we're pushing voice into other areas of use and other fields. For example, we're working in aviation, in rail, in truck and fleet, and in pharmaceutical and manufacturing, whereby we're actually enabling technicians to go through inspection processes with the use of voice. And so instead of filling in a typical, sheet where they're actually going through an inspection process, our system standardizes the actual workflow, it actually takes the most optimum inspection sequence and talks the technicians through a particular process. And as they're going through that process, they check and balance back to the system. If there is a step that fails, they can actually record what the failure is with what we call free speech. And we can also enable them to take a video or a photo to actually put the fault on that particular step. All of that is done dynamically, all in real time. And basically, every technician, whether they're in Miami or whether they're in Timbuktu, are following that same protocol to inspect that same asset all the way through the process. So again, we're bringing and delivering optimization. So productivity gains are significant. Compliance is a massive thing within that particular use case. Standardization, accuracy, and we're enabling hands and eyes free. And that's where the gains come from. So if you imagine a guy or an individual going through an inspection process, checking a truck, for example, and changing a transmission box underneath, he's got gloves on, goggles, etc., to come back out, fill in a form, that form then goes to someone else then tries to type it in, there could be oil all over that form, etc. With voice, none of that occurs, because basically you're wearing a headset, you're speaking information, you've still got your gloves on, and it's all done in real time. So that's really the quick win. And of course, carbon footprint. It's a big thing within those particular sectors and use cases, and especially when we move into healthcare, which we are perhaps the first company globally to take voice into the healthcare sector for that particular use case. It's a huge win.
Phil, in terms of your experience with working with PDA and voice, what has been the user reaction to implementing voice over PDAs?
From our approach, we work with we take individuals from organisations, and when we're actually going through the implementation process, we'll take those advocates and we'll take the guys who no, I don't really want to move on to a new technology, and we take them on our journey. And it's because of that adoption process, and as soon as they realise that they've actually got their hands and eyes free to use this particular solution, and the fact that it's easy to use, there's no real training that needs to take place. The hands and eyes free adoption of this technology really generates their sort of enthusiasm for it, because if you take a company that's perhaps KPI driven for their resources and staff, they can get a lot more done a lot quicker. And so what does that mean? Net result, they earn more money. And as a consequence, they find it a lot more simpler to use than navigating a screen that may be quite cumbersome, may be quite difficult to learn. And the adoption of a screen usually is 4 to 6 weeks training. With voice, it's half a day and you're up and running. Simple as that.
What are the likely investments required, both from a human capital and from a financial capital, of implementing a voice solution?
So from a financial capital standpoint, if we start with that, obviously, we're changing a whole culture of a business, and with that obviously comes cost. That cost obviously is realised, whether that's through capital or whether it's through OPEX. So we can take either or approach, and dependent on the company, I would say probably 9 times out of 10 companies do tend to invest on a capital basis. From a resourcing standpoint, and that investment from resources to adopt the technology, like I said, we take our time to educate and provide them with the benefits and the overall benefits to them as individuals as to how it's going to help them and enable them to complete their task during the course of the day. Of course, like any technology, you will get pushback, but very quickly, that person perhaps who wasn't keen to adopt voice becomes their advocate. And so you've got the guy who does and the guy that didn't, and now both of these guys are working with their peer group to encourage and get them on page so that they can actually, adopt the voice prestige, shall we say, and basically make their lives a lot easier.
How does a modern voice system cope with different languages and different accents?
And again, great question, Ged. And you'd be surprised how many times we get asked that same question. We're fortunate enough to work with a manufacturer that has a voice-trained option, whereby individuals, when we adopt and implement the system, each individual goes through a training template, and the system will ask certain words, and it's actually asking that individual to respond to those words and say those words back to the system. As it's doing that, it's actually learning their voice template, what we call. That's then stored on the server, and basically whether you're from Aberdeenshire, which is a very strong, difficult accent, I think it's the most difficult in the UK, don't quote me on that, to individuals who perhaps are from overseas, it will take their dialects, their accents, and learn that. And we do that in the most busiest part of the warehouse and the distribution centre, because as you know, there's forklifts driving up and down, there's radios on full blast, but the system's that clever and intuitive that what it will do is it will actually know to cancel that noise out, that it will focus on that particular individual's voice when they sign on as the user. And so therefore, if I tried to sign on as you, it wouldn't allow me, and if you tried to sign on as me, again, it wouldn't allow you. They do have the option as well, which we call pick up and go, mainly because a lot of the businesses have temps and seasonal workers that come on stream. Well, to go through that training template, which only takes about 15 minutes, by the way, but if if you've got a heavy resource, a lot of people working, coming in on peak, you haven't really got the time to go through that process. But the system is so refined that it will take on their accents, and it will, it will learn through AI, how they speak, the different nuances, etc. So it does cope very well with that. The system itself speaks over 45 languages. So again, we can have multilingual installations to drive those type of use cases or applications.
Phil, it's been fascinating. Thank you for that introduction into voice solutions. I appreciate all your time today.
It's been a pleasure, Ged. Thank you.
Until next time.